a little outside of Chicago. 30-year-old Diamond Jones, an Illinois resident, and her family were evicted after she called the police multiple times to report a string of violent activity near her home. That's right. She was evicted for reporting crimes. Atlanta Black Star coming in with the details. Jones is suing the Village of Richton Park, a predominantly Black southern suburb of Chicago, after she was kicked out for violating the controversial crime-free housing ordinance, which puts the village in a position to require the landlord to evict a tenant for causing an unreasonably high number of calls to the police or other alleged criminal-related activity. A housing expert told the Chicago Sun-Times that the law targets non-white renters and shouldn't be used to drive them out of their communities. Jones's lawsuit was filed earlier this month to remedy the harm that she suffered as a direct result of the village's actions and to ensure that Richton Park's crime-free housing ordinance is declared unconstitutional. The document stated, claims that her First and 14th Amendment rights were violated as a result of this matter. And she's working with the Chicago Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights, wonderful organization, worked with them in the past, and they put out a press release. Things shifted in June 2022 when a shooting occurred in the village down the street of Jones's residence. Jones was at work while her mother was watching her kids. It led the family to call the local police department. However, doing so opened them up to a wave of threats online. Because of this, they contacted law enforcement for a second time. The violence against them escalated 2 days later when a perp opened fire at her home. Her mother heard gunshots and glass breaking and fell to the floor until the incident was over. Once the shooting stopped, she was able to check whether the children were harmed. The lawsuit said the shooting caused damage throughout Miss Jones's home, with bullet holes and fragments spraying multiple rooms, including the girl's bedroom. They reached out to police again, and following the attack, a patrol car was stationed outside of the home. Jones, who moved into the rental property in 2018, was notified that she violated the CFO and was given a 10-day eviction notice. The note was placed on her door, and according to the lawsuit, it was the first time she heard about the law. Chicago Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights argued that CFOs cause renters like Jones to be more reluctant to report crimes to avoid getting evicted. Quote, I reached out to those who were supposed to protect me and my family, but they let us down. I was ultimately evicted from the home we had lived in for 4 years as a consequence of these events. I sincerely hope that no one else has to go through what I did. I feel like I lost everything, Jones said in the press release. And I worked with individuals who were going through eviction proceedings, discriminatory eviction proceedings, and that sentiment was also echoed by them because evictions can ruin your life. Having an eviction, not even even if you beat the eviction, just to have one filed against you can ruin your ability to get housing unless you get it cleared from your record. So to actually be evicted can completely inhibit your ability to find housing, to find safe housing in a safe neighborhood with reputable landlords. Dina, what is your impression of this situation, the likelihood that, she might be successful with her claims?
Well, it sounds like Village Park is a planned community, and that makes it a little bit different. And, there's more research, but that's what it seems to me. It's a planned community. And we know that at that point, it's like a private community, and private entities can't violate your constitutional rights. Unless it's like a protected class and we're talking about discrimination, which that is not what she's talking about here. She's talking about things like a First Amendment. If you live in a homeowners association, they can say that you cannot put up a political sign on your yard. If my city said that to me, that would be a violation of my First Amendment. But because this is a private planned community that you live in, they're allowed to restrict political signs. So I think that that's how they're going to get around any kind of violation of free speech. It does seem just crazy on its face that they are restricting the number of times somebody's trying to call for help. and it might take the homeowners in that area maybe didn't realize that this ordinance had been passed and go to change the ordinance. I think probably the reason why they have this is I think that I think there's a difference for how police patrol inside a homeowners association. I think they get charged or have to like pay a certain amount because essentially you're asking the police to come onto private property. So my guess is it always comes down to money. They put this here because they don't want somebody to have a police officer come too many times. And then the homeowner bill, let's say, to the law enforcement is higher. And I think that's probably why they did something like this. And unfortunately, you may not realize when you go into a planned community that you have these kind of restrictions. You don't have as much rights. The trade-off is maybe you don't like political signs on your thing and you like everybody's house have to be painted a certain color or whatever. But there are trade-offs, and it really does take the homeowners in that association to change an ordinance like this.
It would be really sad if it turns out that they're sacrificing the safety of the people who live there because they wanted to save a few bucks, but we'll keep everybody updated as that story continues to develop.